moment, I would like to thank the evangelical and religious community, because I'll tell you what, the support that they've given me, and I'm not sure I totally deserve it, has been so amazing and has had such a big reason for me being here tonight. True, so true. They have much to contribute to our politics, yet our laws prevent you from speaking your minds from your own pulpits. An amendment pushed by Lyndon Johnson many years ago threatens religious institutions with a loss of their tax-exempt status if they openly advocate their political views. Their voice has been taken away. I am going to work very hard to repeal that language and to protect free speech for all Americans.
Not too well, Jim. Go on.
We can accomplish these great things and so much
Saudi
more.
Arabia,
All we need to do is start believing in ourselves and in our country again. Start believing. It is time to show the whole world that America is back, bigger and better and stronger than ever before. In this journey, I'm so lucky to have at my side my wife, Melania, and my wonderful children, Don, Ivanka, Eric, Tiffany, and Barron. You will always be my greatest source of pride and joy. And by the way, Melania and Ivanka, did they do a job? My dad, Fred Trump, was the smartest and hardest working man I ever knew. I wonder sometimes what he'd say if he were here to see this and to see me tonight. It's because of him that I learned from my youngest age to respect the dignity of work and the dignity of working people. He was a guy most comfortable in the company of bricklayers and carpenters and electricians. And I have a lot of that in me also. I love those people. Then there's my mother, Mary. She was strong, but also warm and fair-minded. She was a truly great mother. She was also one of the most honest and charitable people that I have ever known, and a great, great judge of character. She could pick them out from anywhere. To my sisters, Mary Ann and Elizabeth, my brother, Robert, and my late brother, Fred, I will always give you my love. You are most special to me.
see what I mean about the Coke thing?
I have had a truly great life in business.
Yeah.
But now, my sole and exclusive mission
Put it together
is
with
to
the
go to work for our country, to go to work for you. It's time to deliver a victory for the American people. We don't win anymore, but we are going to start winning again. But to do that, we must break free from the petty politics of the past. America is a nation of believers, dreamers, and strivers that is being led by a group of censors, critics, and cynics. Remember, all of the people telling you you can't have the country you want are the same people that wouldn't stand. I mean, they said Trump doesn't have a chance of being here tonight. Not a chance. The same people. Oh, we love defeating those people, don't we? Don't we love defeating them? Love it, love it, love it. No longer can we rely on those same people in the media and politics who will say anything to keep our rigged system in place. Instead, we must choose to believe in America. History is watching us now. We don't have much time, but history is watching. It's waiting to see if we will rise to the occasion and if we will show the whole world that America is still free and independent and strong.
Bullshit.
I am asking for your support tonight so that I can be your champion in the White House. And I will be your champion. My opponent asks her supporters to recite a 3-word loyalty pledge. It reads, I'm with her. I choose to recite a different pledge. My pledge reads, I'm with you, the American people. So to every parent who dreams for their child, and every child who dreams for their future, I say these words to you tonight. I am with you, I will fight for you, and I will win for you. Tonight, in all of our cities and in all of our towns, I make this promise. We will make America strong again. We will make America proud again. We will make America safe again. And we will make America great again. God bless you and good night. I love you.
I love you too. Hello, Mr. Boy.
There you have
Abbott, Donald Trump speaking for an hour and 15 minutes. This is the longest convention acceptance speech in about 40 years. Bill Clinton spoke in 1996 for an hour and 10 minutes. George H.W. Bush in 1992 spoke for an hour and 8 minutes. This is the longest speech that we have seen at any of these conventions in either party. Melania Trump out on the stage. The children are now walking out. There's Barron, their 10-year-old son. Barron is there. First time we've seen him out there at this convention. He came with Melania today. A lot of familiar themes delivered by the Republican presidential nominee. As other members of his family are about to walk out on the stage. Lots of discussion of law and order, American nationalism, America first. He kept repeating that. Lots of attacks on Hillary Clinton. Jake, the family's coming out pretty soon. We'll see the vice presidential nominee, Mike Pence, and his family coming out. Then there will be the confetti and the balloons. Jake, what did you think of the speech?
Well, for those who have been not following the primaries, this is the man who won the primaries. This was the Trump speech. There he is. He's joined by his vice presidential candidate, Governor Mike Pence, and his wife, Karen Pence. They have 3 adult children, Michael, Charlotte, and Audrey. So the speech was, I would say, this is how Donald Trump won. He painted a dark and a frightening picture of America, talked about a people being attacked by criminals, attacked by terrorists, betrayed by their leaders, that the game is fixed. And he said he would be their voice, almost echoes of Richard Nixon's silent majority, especially in some of the issues he discussed. He talked about law and order, as you noted. Well, he talked about stopping illegal immigration. He started talking about fair trade deals and bringing jobs back. He was going to revitalize the mining and steel industries, he said, and it sounded as though he promised an end to U.S. interventions abroad. He also, of course, touched on some other issues, including veterans. Very few details. Promises along the lines of, we will fix the TSA, but no details about how he would do that. And we can get into it later, but obviously some of the things he said about foreign policy, he said different things at the time, including
TSA, those are the guys that
we can get into that later when we do more
searches at the airport, okay?
Remarkable speech in
for 3 hours to get onto a plane.
Republican orthodoxies it deviated from. Not any major discussion of God, not any major discussion of what faith has meant to you. A reference to the LGBTQ community. I'm sure that's a first mention at a Republican convention. Not promising anything other than to protect them from being killed by terrorists, but still a mention of them and a thanks to the audience for not booing him. We saw there some fireworks over Lake Erie. In addition, we had a Republican convention booing trade deals. This has been part of Republican Party dogma for decades. And we had not a talk about the United States as a shining city on a hill, American exceptionalism, how we were going to try to reshape the world. It was very much a nationalistic speech, inward-looking, talking about fixing the United States, not about the United States as a beacon around the world. A talk of changing and fixing the United States. A George H.W. Bush speechwriter describing on Twitter, describing the United States that Donald Trump described as a dark, frightening place, and it was a real deviation from the Ivanka Trump speech right before it was.
And there were almost non-stop criticisms, very sharp attacks on Hillary Clinton, and it was only just beginning. We're going to be hearing a lot more about that. Anderson, a very, very forceful speech delivered by this Republican presidential nominee.
With a remarkable number of promises, unclear exactly how he would do this. He said safety will be restored. We're going to defeat ISIS and fast. I will restore law and order, believe me. He talked about appointing the best prosecutors and law enforcement personnel to get the job done. Everyone will get treated equally, he said. Again, unclear how he will make that happen. He said Hillary Clinton wants to abolish
essentially abolish the Second Amendment. John King?
It's interesting. We talked before the speech. It's not just what you say, but how you say it. And I've been in touch with a bunch of veteran Republicans during the speech who are saying they see quite a deal of merit. They say he made a pretty effective change case. The I'll fight for you is a good message on the economy. And they believe the safety and the security, both national security and personal security, is a good message for Donald Trump to deliver. But they were concerned deeply about the tone. They said it was dark, the language was harsh, and it seemed negative. There were nuggets in there, what we talked about before, of what you could call, as Nia said before, a new brand of compassionate conservatism. I want to get into the inner city. I want to help African Americans and Latino Americans who don't have jobs. But those were quick references, and then it became more of a, we're in trouble, we're under siege. And these, again, the strategy said they saw a lot of merits in the themes. They were very, very worried about the tone.
Gloria?
This was more Richard Nixon than Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan was all about morning in America, and while at the end of the speech there was some hope and optimism should he be elected, what I think Donald Trump was doing was appealing to disenchanted people who feel left out, and in doing so talked about a very dark America and the state of affairs in this country as an indictment of Hillary Clinton, saying her legacy was death, destruction, terrorism, and weakness. Now, he did appeal to these people by saying, these voters, I am your voice. But I am not sure that he is broadening the base that he needs to get if he's going to win.
Let's hear from some Trump supporters. Jeffrey Lord?
Yeah. To be honest, this reminded me of Franklin Roosevelt. In 1932, Franklin Roosevelt gave a speech called the Forgotten Man's Speech, which he went through a list of people in America that had been left out, that no one paid attention to. He even cited the banks and sort of the kind of things that Donald Trump cited here.
Look at the little girl who's
Very much like that. FDR said that we need to get back to common sense and business sense. And last night you heard Donald Trump Jr. talk about having a doctrine of common sense. And Donald Trump
like that white one.
This is the newest Trump project to do for America here. As a builder, what he has done for himself.
Corey Lewandowski, first of all, just personally, what is it like for you to hear that speech, to see this night, to witness? You worked on this for a long, long time to make this happen.
It's interesting being up here and not being down there. It's a different perspective. And I can tell you that personally, it's very reflective, and it's really a great honor for me to have been a small part of what took place down there. But I think the speech tonight was really exactly what Gloria said. He talked about the problems our country has. He talked about the way that he wants to try to fix those problems. He's talking about the people who don't have a voice anymore. And what you've seen from Donald Trump over the last 4 days and the people who are talking on his behalf are able to solve problems. Whether it's the woman ring problem, whether it's the golf course that needs to be fixed, whether it's a building that can't be done, he's someone who gets it done. He's going to bring that same type of mindset to the federal government and fix the problems that he outlined tonight.
Dana Bash is on the floor. We're going to hear more from our panelists in a second. Dana Bash, take it away.
We talked a lot about the unconventional convention. This is about as conventional as it gets. You see it, confetti coming down, and a lot of excitement. As you can see here. And the reaction here, you can see it on television, no question, but the reaction here has been, there's a lot of energy. You can very much feel it in the crowd. One thing I want to say that was kind of surprising as we were standing here was to see the way these people who were not sure, many of them who told me to a person, were not sure what they were getting with Donald Trump 13 months ago when they saw that he made this announcement, had signed on to his message.
You think the Stones would let him use it because they could stop it?
By the excitement around here. It's been a very long and very windy 13 months, but they got to the place where they feel comfortable, most of these people, with Donald Trump as their nominee.
Thanks very much. We'll continue to check in with you. Corey, you've listened to a lot of these speeches as the campaign manager. Was it much different than the traditional Donald Trump speech?
I think there's very much the same themes that he's had throughout this campaign. He's talked about, he's added the notion of judicial appointments and how important this election is as it relates to a judicial appointment and what that does to the Second Amendment. But if you think about the trade notion he's talked about, the budget issues, you look at, he's talked about Obamacare, student loans is a new notion that he hasn't talked about in the past. But many of the same themes that he's been talking about for 13 months, particularly immigration reform, which
those who John King talked to, Republicans who said they felt perhaps the tone perhaps too dark. What do you think?
Look, I think Donald Trump coming out of the blocks has not changed who he was. He's been talking about those same issues for the last 15 or 20 years. And it's what this campaign's been built on, which is our country's in trouble. I can fix it. That's what he's talked about. That's what he's instilled in people. And that's what people believe right now. So he's trying to fix that.
It was interesting that David Axelrod, I mean, from going from Obama where the crowd would chant, yes, we can, you had the crowd chanting here, yes, you will, to Donald Trump.
It was interesting. Look, I think there were a couple of points on which he probably scored. One was trade. Ironically, it's an issue that divides this party, but it's an issue that's been a key to his support. And on veterans, I'm sure he did very well with that. But let's be clear. I mean, Jeffrey, I love you, brother. But Franklin Roosevelt said, "We have nothing to fear but fear itself." This speech was, "Be very afraid." Well, that's very, very different.
David, with all due respect, when you go back and you read FDR's speeches, he was, in essence, in some of these early speeches in 1932, telling people they ought to be afraid. They ought to be afraid of the banks. They ought to be afraid of Republicans.
They were in the midst of the Great Depression, but let me say, this was the most relentlessly negative acceptance speech. I went back and read Ronald Reagan's speech from 1980, and I was struck by, even as he was making attacks, how uplifting the speech was. There was nothing to this speech like that. This was a relentlessly negative speech. Now, it may work. It may work.
But even the citing of crime statistics, I mean, if you look at, crime has been declining steadily according to FBI statistics since the 90s. I mean, you can look at specific cities, you can look at, which is how Donald Trump portrayed it, but to say that there is this, that crime is the worst that has ever been.
The other element of this speech that I thought noteworthy was, they're playing, you can't always get what you want, but really the speech was, you can get everything you want, and I'll tell you how you're going to get it later. There were very few specifics.
Ivanka even at some point said, when he's elected, anything will be possible. I thought, comparing Ivanka's speech and this speech, it really was, I think, two pieces of the same half. An attempt to appeal to white women. She talked about maternity leave, she talked about equal pay, and essentially framing herself as the sort of ambassador to women in the Trump White House. And even here, when he talked about, he name-checked Baltimore, Chicago, Detroit, and Ferguson, he said that every action that he would take, he would ask himself, does this make life better for people in those communities? I think that would be news to people in those communities, because he hasn't really talked much about it, much about those people. He certainly didn't mention criminal justice reform, which is what a lot of those folks want to hear people talk about. I also thought, in all of these speeches that we heard tonight, Ivanka, Donald Trump, he talked about the little guy. Ivanka talked about looking in the newspaper and him finding some random person, bringing him to the office and helping him. It would have been nice to hear from all those average people that Donald Trump is so invested in.
One of them.
Yeah, it would have been nice.
Anna Nora, Van Jones?
Look, if you are a Republican who came to this convention hungry for uplifting, unifying, optimistic, visionary speech, you're going home starving. If you are an American who was hoping to see the Donald Trump from the primaries pivot into a more unifying general election candidate, you are sorely disappointed today. I found myself halfway through the speech wishing they would bring Ivanka back. And I have to say, what they did today, on the final night of this convention, putting Joe Arpaio on in prime time, Sheriff Joe Arpaio, who for Latinos, for immigrants, for most of us, that guy is less popular than the Zika-carrying mosquito. For them to do that was such a slap on the face of Latin Americans, of Hispanics in this country, that it just tells me he's not interested in outreach. He can eat all the taco bowls he wants. He did nothing but talk about illegal immigration in that speech. He couldn't put in one damn good story about illegal immigrants. He couldn't find one positive thing to say about immigrants in America. I think that this speech did nothing to grow his base. It did a lot to energize his base. It did nothing to grow his base.
Jeff or Corey, you want to respond to that?
Yeah, I heard a different speech entirely.
You always hear a different speech. You and I apparently live in parallel universes. I just don't like sniffing glue.
Right, but we're now in this Trump era, which is prime ahead.
I don't like sniffing glue. She's telling him he's sniffing glue.
And said to ban over the months, etc., is enough of the identity
Oh,
politics.
God.
We're all Americans here. There are no...
White man living in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. It's a very difficult thing to say to a black man when you see today a man who was shot for trying to save an autistic man from killing himself in my hometown of South Florida.
And it is very difficult because we keep doing this.
No.
But there are a lot of people who see this and say this is about white identity politics.
Is that Sheriff Clark white? Is Ben Carson white? Is
No,
Darrell
but
Scott white?
the vast majority of this crowd is. And
They're all Americans. I mean, how many people down here, Anderson, are gay? I have no idea.
I've seen one that I can tell, but
Peter Thiel. I mean,
no, not Peter Thiel, a guy with a sequence on the jacket.
My point is, who cares? They're all Americans here. That's the problem.
You're full of fucking shit.
Parceled out, balkanized. Everybody is supposed to fight against one another based on their sexual preferences, race, etc.
I came in tonight with an open heart. I think you saw that. I was prepared to hear him do something extraordinary. And never underestimate the power of a single speech to turn a country around. Ivanka was beautiful. She gave a general election speech. If you have a pulse, if you have a functioning brainstem, you should have been saluting Ivanka Trump. His friend, who tried to humanize him, did a beautiful job. But what Donald Trump did tonight is a disgrace. That was relentlessly, even for Donald Trump, who at least occasionally breaks up the fear-mongering with some jokes, with some asides, some amusement. He had one funny line in an hour and 15 minutes, and the rest of it was just a relentlessly dark speech. He was describing some Mad Max America. I work in some of the toughest neighborhoods and some of the toughest communities in this country, and I don't know what he's talking about when he describes the country he's talking about. And there was some schizophrenic, psychopathic attempt to pull apart the Obama coalition, but from a political point of view, he even...
Van Jones, right?
He says, he reaches out to the LGBT community,
yeah.
and he says, foreign ideologies that hate you, I'm against
We're going to hit it.
The domestic ideologies that hate you, he's apparently for because they're all in his platform. He says he's going to reach out to African Americans and deal with their economic pains. It's hard, Anderson, to get a job if you're in a community that's over-policed and you have a criminal record. And every other leader in the country on both sides of the aisle have talked about criminal justice. He didn't. But this, I've never felt this way in my life. I have read in history, being in moments where there's some big authoritarian movement and some leader that's rising up. And I felt that way tonight, and it was terrifying for me. This speech divided the country. You're either inspired by this or you're terrified by it. I'm terrified by it. I'm terrified by it.
He reached out to the Bernie Sanders people tonight. He said on many occasions in Bernie's name, he wants to make sure that he's bringing new people into the fold. What he also talked about was, and you heard this earlier in the night, is how big of an increase there's been in voter participation in the Republican Party and how down the Democratic Party process has been. And the reason for that is because people are fed up with Washington. You can call it party of identity politics, you can call it whatever you want. The basic premise is Washington, D.C. is broken. It's been broken for a long time. The people are fed up. They're not fed up because they're white. They're not fed up because they're black. Washington, D.C. is broken. And until we do something to fix the government, until we do something to fix the government, people are going to be frustrated. And what they want is they want a leader to go to Washington and fundamentally reform it. That means fix our trade policies, reduce our deficit, make our neighborhoods safe, make sure we're not going to wars that we don't belong in. That's what they're asking for, and that's what Donald Trump is as a leader.
I would have stood up. If he gave that speech, I promise you, I would have stood up and I would have applauded. That was not the speech he gave. He wasn't tough on Washington, D.C. He was tough on Latino immigrants. He was tough on ordinary people.
All the time.
Am I wrong?
Just say the Clinton campaign is happening tonight. I was going to have a conversation with someone who also put out a statement from the Clinton campaign.
We got it right here.
And he just talks about more fear, more division.
We're going to let this thing run, dude.
Donald Trump is temperamentally unfit to be president.
Groundbreaking.
He says it's more prejudice and more paranoia.
But I mean, it's obviously they're going to say that. I think to Corey's point, this is the speech he's been giving, and this is the speech that got him here. And there's a lot of people.
This is the operative.
14 months.
This is the operative question. Will the things that he did in the primary get him the votes he needs to win a general election in a much broader and more diverse electorate? And he is making a bet that that same message can yield enough votes to win in a very diverse country. I think that's a tough bet.
He was making, in almost apocalyptic terms, the need for change, right? I mean, the language, I was circling words in this, as he talked about a need for law and order, crisis, danger, terror, disaster, humiliation. Right, but what he's doing is he's making the case for change in the starkest terms I've ever heard.
I mean, I don't think it can be any more.
It's not about hope. It's about, this.
Florida, it can't be any more stark when you have dead policemen in the streets of Dallas and Baton Rouge, when you've got dead Americans from Texas on the streets of France. That's crisis.
Right, and the solutions that we heard tonight are not different, as Corey was saying, from what we've heard before. Build a wall, immigration, et cetera, but I found that, I was looking for something, your favorite person, more Reagan-esque, and I didn't feel that.
John,
at all.
Look, we've said this, how many times have we said this? Trump is Trump. He's going to do what he thinks is right. He's going to trust his gut. This is the message he thinks is going to work, and we're going to see if he's right or not, because he's proven a lot of people wrong in the last year. I will just tell you, to the point I was making about the Clinton campaign, we're 115 days out. David knows the mechanics and the math and the machinery better than me, but you have a voter model by now. You've identified people. You know who is going to vote for you. You know who might vote for you. You know the people who you want to turn out who might not be terribly enthusiastic about you. That's the Clinton campaign's biggest worry, because they do think there are some in the African-American community, some in the Latino community, who are not enthusiastic about her, especially as enthusiastic as they were about Barack Obama. And their big worry tonight was that Donald Trump would do something to open some minds and to try to at least get a second look. Not win them tonight, but get a second look. And they don't think he did. Are they right? Who knows? But they don't think he did.
Well, I think where it was most effective, honestly, is when he said her slogan is "I'm with her," and my slogan is "I'm with you, the American people." And when he said it a couple of times in the speech, "I am your voice," I think that's effective. I think that was the most effective part of the speech.
He is not my voice, and he's not the voice of a lot of people. If you're looking for a politician who struck those kind of tones, don't talk to me about a Ronald Reagan or an FDR. That was George Wallace. That speech sounded, frankly, a lot better when George Wallace gave it, because it had a little bit more humor in it when George Wallace gave it. That speech was one of the most relentlessly dark and divisive speeches in the history of this country.
This is a tweet that was sent out by John Weaver, the Kasich camp strategist. He said, "Hell, speeches like this are a dime a dozen in Tegucigalpa, Caracas, Asuncion, and Donetsk."
Is that the John Weaver who elected President McCain? I'm just curious.
No, he actually left the McCain campaign before McCain won the nomination.
Well, he did a great job in Governor Kasich's campaign.
Manager.
He did a great job. If we could get back, I want to make a point about
Donald Trump got into a fight with.
I want to make a point on immigration, and you'll know this, John, because you're fluent in this. In every exit poll, what struck me was, even in the Republican primary, Republicans were not really warming up to Trump's immigration position. I said before, I thought he scored with the trade position, and he may have touched some people with that. But there was not great enthusiasm for the wall. There was not great enthusiasm for the deportation, and he's doubled down on it tonight. And I'm not sure that helps him at all.
It played in this room. I mean, you heard them chanting, "Build the wall, build the wall, build the wall." You also heard them, lock her up.
It was interesting, though, when they were chanting "lock her up." I don't know if you could see. He was basically with the lower hand. He was sort of putting the kibosh on her, and he said, "Let's beat her. Yeah, let's beat her in November."
They worked on that in speech prep.
Yeah, they did.
Yes, they asked him not to take the bait.
Interesting.
And look, if you look at who the speech is directed at, states like Ohio, Pennsylvania, states that are absolutely critical for him to win in order to get elected president of the United States, states that are they've been hammered on the trade issue, their jobs have been shipped overseas, they've left their states, people in that have traditionally been Democrats have been working those mills and those mines, and coal miners specifically talked about, right, you want to put those people back to work. work. Those states are what are going to propel him to the presidency if he's going to be successful in November. And that's what this was designed to do.
You're exactly right, but that is like drawing to an inside straight in the sense that he has to win Pennsylvania. It's very tough. It's doable, but it's a heavy lift. George W. Bush tried twice so hard to win it, couldn't win it. It's doable, but it's tough. Has to win Ohio, and then what? If he can't win Florida, and Anna's home state is going to be, I think we can all camp out right there. Because if he can't get those 29, if he can't get those 29, then where does he get them? If you can do Pennsylvania, Ohio, Florida, game over. He's the next president of the United States. But if he loses the 29 in Florida because of Latinos and immigration or whatever else motivates Latinos, where do you get the rest? That's the issue. Then you got to get Wisconsin and Michigan. But what I thought, listen,
I'm going to let this video run.
The Rust Belt is sitting there
as long as it goes on, I'm going to let it go.
Because of Hillary Clinton's position on trade. And the idea that he could go up there and he can make a good showing for himself.
I've never seen anything like this.
I said from the very beginning,
no matter what.
That's his way to, that's his pathway to make things. Don't count him out. But he said he would have to be able to do that without inflaming the African American, Latino, and other folks who are up there. It's not just working class white guys up there. And this speech inflamed. Listen, he just consolidated. I've got Bernie Sanders people who are now saying they are. I mean, the last holdouts for Bernie Sanders are saying they are now for Hillary Clinton because that speech was so shocking and so divisive that he actually did some work that Hillary Clinton couldn't do.
Yeah, and I just heard from some black Republicans, and I mean, he's going to need
I'm getting views. I doubled my views since yesterday.
George Bush did do well with African Americans. Even Richard Nixon did fairly well with the African Americans in 1968. I think he got about 15%. They got 32% when he ran in 1960. But this, I think, he's gonna alienate.
I'm getting texts from Republican Congress people who are saying to me, "I'm embarrassed of my party." It sounded like a fearmonger. This is not Republicanism.
Wow.
I think a lot of Republicans today are cringing and just hating.
I want you up for your quarter.
Get it, Gene. Where the fuck is it? You have it. I got it. Wow.
Constituents, none, zero. Donald Trump got it. This isn't fear. This is a statement of reality. As I said to Gloria, when you've got 6 dead cops in the streets of Dallas, Texas, when you've got dead policemen, black and white, in the streets of Baton Rouge, when you have dead Americans in the streets of France, people are right to say there is something wrong and we are in a crisis. And Donald Trump is saying, I hear you and I will fix it. And that's even
there is absolutely something wrong, and we are in a crisis. We are in a divided crisis right now. But if you think anything that man said tonight is going to solve this crisis, you heard a different
What is wrong with
Go listen to the speech. Go listen to the words of the trauma surgeon in Dallas, the guy who was there when those 5 dead policemen died. Go listen to the words of the chief of police of Dallas. That's the kind of thing that will get us past the crisis. Not this fear-mongering, not this divisiveness.
What is wrong?
This disgusting speech that we heard tonight.
What is wrong?
That does not bring out the darkness in America. It is terrifying.
What is wrong with having sympathy for people who are murdered by people who should not be?
Wait a minute now.
But you know what? Can you show a little sympathy for the people who were murdered by police inexcusably?
Did you hear any explanation? I mean, Donald Trump sort of identified what he believes is the problem. Was there any solution? Was he actually offering anything in terms of? I mean, how is he going to restore law and order when he takes over?
Anderson, this is a nomination acceptance speech. It's not a congressional State of the Union speech. There's not going to be, there shouldn't be 10,000 details in it. It should be the vision. This is where we're going to go, and we're going to go in this direction. And this is how.
She's going to eat him for lunch, and Dan Jones is going to let her eat him for lunch.
Where he says, he says he's going to defeat ISIS fast, that he's going to restore law and order, that everybody's going to be treated equally.
Let's use tactics for a minute. I mean, he's already got it.
Well, more in law and order.
I understand why you're saying
how is he suddenly going to restore law and order?
Anderson, they will have plenty of people to flesh out all this. That's not what this speech is about.
But he did give some details. He said apparently he's going to appoint the best prosecutors and get law enforcement people to get the job done. I assume he's saying that the current level of prosecutors are not very good, or the law enforcement personnel are not up to the challenge.
We are living in a situation here where the current government doesn't get it. It's the status quo. To go back to FDR, who said, the FDR's big thing in 1932 was being the first person to fly to a convention and accept the nomination because before they all waited at home for it. And he gets there and he says, I came here and broke a tradition because I think it's time that we break silly traditions. And some of what Donald Trump is talking about is breaking some of the silly traditions we have here.
Look, this is about Donald Trump doubling down.
How you would do stuff.
Doubling down on his... Can I just... Jeffrey, this is Donald Trump doubling down on his strategy. The line that's about, and Corey was talking about it, and John King was talking about it, which is the Rust Belt strategy. These are the people, the disaffected, disenchanted, people who feel left out of any kind of economic advances. And he had a sentence here. I've joined the political arena so that the powerful can no longer beat up on people that cannot defend themselves.
Yeah.
Okay? Remember Al Gore, people versus the powerful and all the rest, on the side of the people. Except a lot of the speech didn't reflect that. That's the, there was a little bit of a disconnect.
When he was talking about the parents of Sarah Root, I mean, what do you mean?
Build a wall, all the, you know what I'm saying? Some of the rhetoric doesn't match the noble thought of defending the defenseless, right?
What he talked about in that, and he was very clear, we heard from Jamil Shaw, and we heard from Sabine, and we heard from people whose families were directly impacted by illegal immigration. And what he said was, I'm going to stop that from happening because you don't have a voice. Where was the voice of the U.S. government when your family members were getting killed? Where was the voice for Jamil Shaw?
How many people?
Being shot in the face by an illegal
She's going to explode on a watch here.
Who shot in the face.
See?
So what he's
Van
saying
Jones is ready to go.
I'm going to stop that from happening. I'm going to inject myself. I'm going to build a wall. We're going to have a legal immigration system. He said legal. He said legal multiple times. We're going to reform the process so that we know who's coming in. And he also points out the difference of the Syrian refugees that Hillary Clinton wants to bring in 550% more Syrian refugees than what's currently being in place. It's a significant difference. It's a tale of two cities. It's two complete philosophies of one of first, let's have a immigration system, let's do it legally, and the other is, hey, we'll let the people in, we'll figure it out later, and if they kill a U.S. citizen, we'll solve that problem afterwards.
Dan? So listen, I'm trying. I'm really trying. First of all, there's two things here. There's what is said and there's what's not said. If you listen to that speech and you didn't know any better, you would think that every undocumented person in this country was a rapist or a murderer or a killer. No, let me finish. You got a chance to talk quite a bit. Right. There are 11 million folks here, most of them working hard every day. They get up, they catch the early bus, they do what they...
Huh? Oh my. What? Oh my. I can't even turn it off. Look. It's not reacting at all. I can see that. Maybe they don't like us, huh? Well, let's sit there and see what happens, dude. Okay? Change channels. See what happens. No, I knew it would be like this. Do you have an on-off button? I have another problem. I think they gave us a problem. Here, I'm going to turn it off and see what the fuck happens, huh? Well, guys, there, see? Don't they love us?